Close your eyes and let your mind drift to a valley hidden deep beneath towering pines, where shadows hold mysteries, and the whisper of ancient trees fills the night air. In this secluded place lives Fenn, the golden-eyed wolf, a creature bound by magic and burdened by truth, able to see beyond illusion into the heart of every secret. Tonight, let his tale unfold softly in your mind, each word a gentle guide into dreams. Feel the stillness of the forest, the quiet wisdom of the night, and let sleep find you in this realm where only truth remains. In a forgotten valley, nestled deep beneath towering pines, there was a place where even the bravest dared not venture after dark. Here, shadows shifted in unnatural ways, and voices that did not belong to the living were said to echo among the trees. By day, the forest was quiet, yet an air of something unseen lingered in every rustle, as if the very woods were alive and waiting. At night, a creature prowled, a wolf, they whispered, with eyes that glinted like molten gold. His name was Fenn, and he bore a gift that was as much curse as power. His gaze saw through every lie, every disguise, uncovering the secrets others would rather keep hidden. The villagers who lived on the forest's edge spoke of Fenn in fearful murmurs, eyes darting to the shadows beyond their fires. They claimed he had once been an ordinary wolf, a creature born like any other beneath the forest's boughs. But one night, a figure had been seen drifting between the trees, a witch, veiled and ageless, her eyes two gleaming embers. She had chosen Fenn, though no one knew why. And when dawn broke, his eyes gleamed with a golden light that did not belong to this world. Over time, Fenn's eyes became both a blessing and a prison. Creatures of the forest kept their distance, wary of his penetrating gaze, which could strip away illusions like autumn leaves from a tree. Other wolves had learned to avoid him, for Fenn's gift meant that even his own kind felt laid bare before him. In the villages nearby, stories of his powers grew, stories told in hushed voices, of his gift to see the hidden truths, to reveal what others wished unseen. Some said he was a demon cast from the spirit world, others that he was a guardian of hidden realms. But one thing they all agreed upon: if you encountered the golden-eyed wolf, you'd best turn back, lest he unravel you with a single look. Yet there were nights when Fenn wandered close to the edge of the village, where the smell of fire and smoke mingled with the scent of damp earth. He would watch from the shadows as villagers spun their tales and laughter drifted like music into the dark. Sometimes he wondered if they ever knew how much of themselves they kept hidden, even from those they loved. For his eyes had shown him truths that most could not bear to face, hearts heavy with secrets, words that veiled lies, and bonds as fragile as threads, ready to snap at the faintest pull. Winter descended upon the valley one year, colder and darker than any in recent memory. Snow covered the ground like a thick, muffling shroud, and the silence grew deeper, unsettling. It was then that a stranger appeared at the village. He came wrapped in a cloak of midnight, his face hidden beneath a hood, and his voice was like smoke, trailing into the air before vanishing. He spoke of places far beyond the valley, lands where the sun warmed fields of endless green, where rivers ran bright as polished silver. The villagers were enchanted by his tales, for they were weary of the cold and hungered for tales of warmth and splendor. But when he turned to speak of treasures, a wealth that lay buried within the forest themselves, their eyes gleamed with a dangerous hunger. As the days passed, Fenn watched from afar. He saw the way the stranger moved, gliding through the snow as if weightless, his footsteps leaving no trace. Fenn's golden gaze could pierce through most veils, yet there was something about this stranger he could not fully see, something elusive. Then, one by one, villagers began to disappear. First, it was the old cobbler who had spoken eagerly of faraway lands, his door left ajar, his fire cold. Next was the shepherd, his hut dark and empty at dawn. Panic seized the village as more vanished without a word, each absence widening the void that had crept into their lives. Desperate, the villagers huddled together, each casting uneasy glances into the surrounding dark. They had heard of Fenn's gift, his ability to see beyond masks and deceit, yet fear held them back. To seek out the golden-eyed wolf would mean confronting truths they may not be ready to face. But as the days passed, and the stranger's shadow continued to linger, they saw no other choice. In the dead of night, they ventured into the forest, a small band of villagers clutching lanterns that cast feeble light into the sprawling dark. The trees towered above them like silent sentinels, and every step was an act of courage or madness. For hours, they wandered until at last, beneath the moon's spectral glow, they saw him, Fenn, resting beneath the arching boughs of an ancient oak, his golden eyes gleaming softly, watching them with a gaze as unfathomable as the forest itself. The villagers stood frozen in Fenn's presence, their lanterns flickering, casting weak pools of light that seemed to cower against the shadowed embrace of the forest. Fenn's golden eyes, unblinking, regarded them with a calm that felt older than the valley itself, older than the mountains or the trees. In that quiet, his gaze was all-encompassing, absorbing every movement, every whisper of hesitation that rippled through the group. None dared speak, for even their breaths felt too loud in the ancient stillness. At last, one of the villagers, a grey-haired woman with the weight of many winters in her eyes, found her voice. She had once been known as the wisest of the village, a keeper of old tales and forgotten knowledge. Her voice, low and steady, broke the silence. "Fenn of the golden eyes," she began, her words respectful yet trembling with fear. "We have come seeking your help. though we know the cost may be dear. There is a stranger among us, one who does not belong to this world, though he hides his face behind kindness and stories of distant lands. He has taken our people, one by one, leaving nothing behind but emptiness and fear. Fenn remained silent, his gaze fixed upon her. She felt his eyes upon her, as though he could see straight through to her thoughts, peeling away every layer of pretense she might wear, every defense she'd ever known. But it was not malice that she saw in his gaze. It was the weight of wisdom, a knowing that bore its own loneliness. After a long moment, Fenn lowered his head, his voice a soft rumble in the dark. "The stranger you speak of is not of your world," he said, each word imbued with a strange gravity. "He wears many faces and knows well the art of deceiving mortal eyes. But his power is built on illusion, woven from the shadows and the fears within your hearts. I alone can see him for what he truly is." The villagers exchanged uneasy glances, each silently dreading what Fenn's eyes might reveal. They had heard of his gift, of the truth that lay like a burden within his golden gaze. Some called it a blessing, while others, more fearful, called it a curse. For those who fell beneath Fenn's gaze often found their own illusions laid bare, their pretenses shattered, unable to stand in the face of a truth so raw and piercing. The elder took a step forward, holding her lantern close to her chest, as if it might shield her from what lay ahead. "If you can see through him," she murmured, her voice faltering, "then we beg you, Fenn, show us the truth. We are desperate, and we are afraid." Fenn's gaze flickered across the assembled villagers, reading the fear etched into their faces. He nodded, a slow, almost sorrowful movement, and rose from his place beneath the oak. His body moved like a shadow come to life, sinuous and quiet, his paws pressing softly against the forest floor. He motioned for them to follow, and they fell into step behind him, their lanterns bobbing like faint stars swallowed by the night. As they made their way back to the village, the air seemed to thicken, a silence stretching between them like a taut string. Fenn led them, his steps unwavering, and the villagers clung to the hope that his gift might be enough to unveil the stranger's true form and end the nightmares that had crept into their lives. When they reached the village, the night had deepened, and the moon hung high, casting its pale light over the empty streets. The stranger was waiting for them in the square, his cloak as dark as the night itself, his hood pulled low over his face, obscuring everything but a sly smile that seemed to glint even in the dim light. He inclined his head, his voice a soft melody that felt like silk slipping through the villager's fingers. "Ah," he greeted, a sly smile stretching across his face. "I see you have brought a friend with you." His gaze settled upon Fenn, and for the briefest moment, there was a flicker in his eyes, something too quick to name but cold and calculating. Fenn's golden eyes met the stranger's without hesitation, and in that instant, the air around them grew heavy, charged with an energy that made the villagers hold their breath. Fenn's gaze bore down upon the stranger, digging through the layers of illusion, peeling back each mask with an almost ruthless clarity. The stranger's smile faltered, his form seeming to shudder under the weight of Fenn's stare. And then, like a shadow retreating from the dawn, the illusion began to unravel. The stranger's cloak melted away, revealing a thin, gaunt figure that seemed to shimmer, caught somewhere between the mortal world and the realm of nightmares. His face was hollow, eyes sunken, with a gaze that seemed to suck the warmth from the night air. No longer could he hide behind the mask of a friendly traveller. His true form had been revealed. A wraith, a creature forged from sorrow and silence, a being whose hunger knew no bounds. A murmur of horror swept through the villagers, some gasping, others pressing their hands over their mouths to stifle cries. They could not look away, entranced by the terror and mystery of what Fenn's eyes had revealed. The wraith's gaze turned sharp, furious, its mouth twisting into a snarl as it sensed the unraveling of its disguise. Fenn's golden eyes held steady, unrelenting, the truth shining from them like a beacon. And in that glow, the villagers felt a tremor of hope begin to stir, a fragile thing but real, illuminated by the harsh, unforgiving light of truth. The wraith's disguise now lay in tatters, its hollow, translucent form a far cry from the warm, charming figure it had once appeared to be. Under the harsh gaze of Fenn's golden eyes, the creature's true nature had been stripped bare, revealing the spectre of shadows that hid beneath. The villagers clutched one another, as if holding on could steady them against the icy reality of what had lurked among them, preying upon their hopes and vulnerabilities. Fenn's gaze remained fixed on the wraith, his expression calm but unyielding, an unwavering sentinel in the face of the creature's despairing hunger. But the wraith was not finished. Its form wavered, shimmering like fog in the moonlight as it cast its gaze across the gathered villagers. Its mouth twisted into a crooked, mocking smile. "Fools!" it rasped, its voice carrying an unnatural echo that made the hair on their necks rise. "You think exposing me changes anything? I wear 1,000 faces, take 1,000 shapes. Your pitiful eyes may see me now, but I'm everywhere you dare to dream, in every hope you clutch tightly, in every fear you bury deep." The villagers shuddered, feeling as though the wraith's words were creeping into the very marrow of their bones. And as if in response to their trembling, the wraith's form flickered once more, shifting, stretching, now taking on the likeness of the shepherd who had disappeared, then that of the cobbler, then the faces of others who had been lost. The villagers gasped as they recognized their loved ones, their neighbors, the people who had vanished into the night. The wraith moved among them, shifting from face to face, a parade of stolen visages, each one mocking the sorrow that lingered in the villagers' hearts. Some turned their faces away, unable to bear the sight of their missing kin twisted into the wraith's deception. But Fenn, steady as stone, did not flinch. His gaze remained on the creature, unwavering. Beneath his golden eyes, the illusions began to falter, each face melting away like frost in the morning sun, revealing once again the hollow, featureless being that lay beneath. The wraith's voice grew angrier, its words spilling out like venom. "You cannot defeat me," it sneered. "I am not bound by flesh and bone. I feed upon your secrets, your lies, the fragile deceptions that guard your minds. Without them, what are you but vulnerable souls, naked and trembling before the truth?" The villagers, though terrified, began to murmur among themselves. They had come face to face with a creature that embodied all they feared. Yet Fenn had shown them its form, forced it to reveal its true, twisted nature. Perhaps there was something powerful, something liberating in seeing the creature for what it was, even if it filled them with dread. It was then that the elder, the same grey-haired woman who had spoken to Fenn in the forest, raised her voice above the others. "We may carry our secrets, yes," she said, her voice wavering yet fierce. "But we carry them because we are human, because the weight of truth is sometimes too much for a single heart to bear. That does not make us weak." The wraith hissed, recoiling as if struck by her words. Its form shivered and grew thin, like smoke caught in a harsh wind. Fenn's gaze followed it relentlessly, his eyes gleaming with a silent power. Beneath his watch, the creature's shape began to shift once more, its face twisting into a new form, this one familiar yet unexpected. A perfect likeness of Fenn himself, with golden eyes burning bright and fierce. The villagers gasped, startled to see their own protector mirrored in the creature's appearance. It was a brazen mockery, the wraith's attempt to wield Fenn's power against him, to cast his own image as a weapon. But Fenn did not waver. His eyes met his own reflection in the wraith's face, calm and untroubled, his golden gaze cutting through the creature's feeble attempt at mimicry. "You may steal faces," Fenn spoke at last, his voice low, steady as a heartbeat. "You may even twist my own likeness to deceive, but you cannot wear truth as a mask." As he spoke, the wraith's form began to tremble, the illusion unable to hold in the face of Fenn's resolute calm. Bit by bit, the creature's borrowed face dissolved, leaving only a hollow, spectral shell, desperate and struggling to hold its shape. The villagers watched, entranced, as Fenn's gaze continued to strip away every last vestige of the wraith's power, reducing it to a shadow of the creature it had once pretended to be. With a last desperate shriek, the wraith turned on the villagers, its voice laced with a bitter fury. "You think this wolf protects you?" It snarled, voice like brittle glass. "But he brings only pain. For every truth he uncovers, something must be lost." But the villagers, inspired by Fenn's unyielding gaze, stood firm. In their hearts, they felt a shift, a flicker of strength kindled by the wolf's silent courage. They saw that beneath every illusion the wraith had conjured, there was only emptiness, a hollow promise, a creature that fed on their fears, but could do nothing to truly harm them. The elder stepped forward, her voice strong. "We may suffer in our truths," she said, "but we suffer together. You, creature, are nothing but a shadow, vanquished by the light." And as her words echoed through the night, Fenn's gaze blazed brighter, golden light spilling forth like dawn breaking over the valley. The wraith's form collapsed, folding in on itself, twisting into smoke that the wind scattered among the trees until all that remained was silence, deep, resounding, and complete. As the final echoes of the wraith's shriek faded into the night, a heavy silence fell upon the village. The villagers stood unmoving, held in the grip of a strange, charged stillness that felt as though the world itself was holding its breath. In the center of it, all stood Fenn, his golden eyes dimmed but watchful, his form illuminated by the pale moonlight that bathed the empty square. The villagers, though safe now from the wraith's terror, felt as though something far greater was unfolding before them, a test, an unveiling of truths that went deeper than any disguise the creature had worn. The elder, still standing at the front of the group, regarded Fenn with a new, quiet reverence. She had seen the golden-eyed wolf as a fearsome guardian, a creature of the forest who might, in his way, be as dangerous as the wraith. But now, seeing the sacrifice in his gaze, the weariness beneath his eyes, she began to understand the weight of his gift. And though they had turned to him in their hour of need, she knew now that his gaze could not merely reveal lies. It would expose the hidden parts of their own hearts, uncovering even those truths they had buried deep. A man stepped forward from the crowd, his face drawn and pale. He was a blacksmith, strong in his shoulders and hands, but his eyes were clouded with an unease he had tried to mask. He looked to Fenn, his voice trembling. "You see through masks," he said quietly. "Can you see the secrets that I hold within myself?" There was an edge of fear in his tone, the hesitation of someone standing at the threshold of a forbidden place, yet unable to turn away. Fenn's gaze met his, steady and calm, but filled with an ancient sorrow. "If you wish to know your own truth, I can reveal it," Fenn replied, his voice soft but resonant, filling the square with a strange calm. "But understand, not all can bear to look upon what they have hidden from themselves." The blacksmith hesitated, the words hanging between them like mist, but the pull of Fenn's gaze was too strong to resist. He stepped closer, nodding, and closed his eyes. The villagers watched, breathless, as Fenn's golden gaze fell upon him, and in that instant the truth unfolded, a vision only the blacksmith could see. In his mind's eye, memories stirred, old wounds surfaced. He saw himself as a young man, standing before his father, full of shame for not being the son he was expected to be. He saw a choice he had made, a moment of weakness buried long ago, a guilt he had carried in silence. As Fenn's gaze lingered, the blacksmith felt those buried fears give way, the truth rising within him like a dark tide. Yet, instead of consuming him, it left him feeling strangely light, as if a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. When he opened his eyes, they glistened with tears, and he whispered, "Thank you." He stepped back, his heart unburdened, and Fenn's gaze moved on to the next. One by one, the villagers came forward, each silently confronting a truth they had carried alone. Some saw regrets they had long tried to ignore. Others witnessed the fear of vulnerability, of opening themselves to others in their truest forms. And though each faced a different truth, they felt, in the end, the quiet relief that followed, the lightness of standing exposed, but unafraid, as though a great fog had lifted. Yet, as they bared their hearts to the golden-eyed wolf, Fenn too felt the weight of his gift settle upon him, a burden he had carried since the night the witch had granted him those enchanted eyes. He had walked through life seeing beyond every veil, every mask, knowing the truths others hid even from themselves. He had witnessed kindness clothed in fear, love shrouded in pride, hope disguised by doubt. He had understood the fragility of every heart he encountered, and though he had remained apart from their lives, he carried the knowledge of all they had revealed to him. When the last villager stepped back, the square was silent again, filled not with fear, but with a strange reverence. They looked at Fenn not with the apprehension they had once felt, but with gratitude, for he had stripped away their fears as surely as he had the wraith's illusions. And in doing so, he had shown them a part of themselves they had long forgotten. The strength that lay hidden beneath the layers they wore to shield themselves from life's bitter winds. The elder approached him one last time, her face solemn. "You have shown us our truths, Fenn," she said softly. "You have laid bare the hidden corners of our hearts. But you too must carry this knowledge. Is there no rest for one who sees as you do?" Fenn's golden eyes softened, and for a brief moment they seemed almost sad. He shook his head slowly, the gesture as old as the mountains, as patient as the stars. "Truth is a burden I cannot lay down," he murmured. "Yet it is also a gift. For in seeing others as they truly are, I remember the beauty of a soul laid bare, a heart unhidden." He turned his gaze to the villagers, his golden eyes dimmed but unwavering, and they understood then that his path lay ever onward, bound to the forest, to the mystery of the unseen. They watched as Fenn turned, slipping back into the shadows, his form fading into the night like a whisper of smoke. And though he vanished into the dark, his presence lingered in the square, as if his gaze still watched over them, a silent promise woven into the air. For the villagers, Fenn's truth had changed them. They knew now that they could no longer fear their own hearts. And as dawn broke over the valley, they felt the warmth of the sun as they had never felt it before. Each step lighter, each breath deeper, the truth of their own lives as precious to them as the gentle morning light. Days passed in the village after that strange and silent night. Though the villagers went about their lives, there was a subtle change in their steps, a quiet resilience that had not been there before. Beneath their words and gestures, a thread of truth wove through them, binding them to a deeper understanding of themselves and one another. They no longer avoided their reflections, no longer feared the shadows within, for Fenn's gaze had shown them the beauty in even their darkest secrets. And yet, like a distant echo, the memory of the golden-eyed wolf lingered, an unresolved question waiting in the silence of the forest. Then one evening, the elder gathered the villagers in the square, her eyes shadowed with a thought she could no longer keep to herself. "Fenn has granted us a vision of ourselves," she said, her voice strong yet soft, as though she was speaking to the night itself. "But we know nothing of what lies within him, of the truth he carries alone. He bears a burden that none of us can imagine, a gift so fierce it sets him apart, even from his own kind." The villagers exchanged glances, feeling the weight of her words. They had never considered that Fenn too might have his own truths, secrets guarded in the silence of his heart. And though he was bound by the magic of his eyes to see through others, what did he see when he looked within? It was a question that hung heavy over them, unanswered, an echo that stretched into the woods. The elder continued, her voice low. "Tonight, I would like to ask him one final gift. Not a gift of truth for ourselves, but a glimpse into the heart of the one who sees so deeply and so alone." With quiet resolve, the villagers once more took their lanterns and made their way into the forest. The moon was high, casting a silver glow that pooled upon the snow, guiding their path. They walked in silence, their breaths misting in the cool night air, until they reached the ancient oak where Fenn had first met them. And there, waiting as if he had anticipated their arrival, was the golden-eyed wolf, his gaze gleaming softly in the moonlight. The elder stepped forward, bowing her head respectfully. "Fenn," she said, her voice a whisper in the vast quiet of the forest. "You have given us a gift beyond measure. You have shown us truths we had long hidden from ourselves. But tonight we ask a final question. Will you share with us the truth of your own heart? What do you see when you look upon yourself? And what burdens lie hidden in your golden gaze? Fenn's eyes softened, and for a long silent moment he looked upon them, his gaze thoughtful, almost gentle. They could see something shift within his eyes, a gleam that was more than golden light, more than mere reflection. It was as though, for the first time, the wolf allowed himself to truly be seen. "When I look upon myself," he began, his voice deep and resonant, "I see the path I have walked, and I see the loneliness it has etched into my bones. I see the truths I have uncovered and the bonds I have left behind. My gift is one that strips illusions, even from the heart. I have walked with this gift as my only companion, and though it has brought me wisdom, it has also left me apart. For to see all things as they are without the veils that protect is to live a life stripped bare, and sometimes even I yearn for a moment of shadow." The villagers felt a pang of sadness at his words, understanding for the first time the depth of his solitude. Though he could reveal their truest selves, no one could do the same for him. His path was illuminated by the light of truth, and yet it was a lonely one, a journey without disguise or refuge. Fenn looked out over the villagers, his gaze softening further. "But when I look upon all of you," he continued, "I see hope woven into the hearts of those who choose to face themselves, even when it hurts. I see strength in those who dare to stand before the mirror of their own souls. That too is a gift, one that cannot be given by magic, but by the courage of human hearts." The elder, her eyes glistening, nodded slowly, understanding the depth of Fenn's gift. "You have given us something greater than we could ever repay, Fenn," she said softly. "But if there is one truth we can offer in return, it is that you are not alone. You have shown us our own hearts, yes, but in doing so you have bound us to you. For we too have seen the heart of the golden-eyed wolf, and it is a heart that has loved, protected, and understood." Fenn's gaze held hers for a moment, the faintest glimmer of something unspoken flickering in his eyes. Perhaps gratitude, or perhaps the simple relief of being known. The villagers, sensing the sacredness of the moment, remained silent, their own hearts swelling with the understanding that Fenn's gift, though powerful, came at a cost they could never fully fathom. As dawn approached, a soft golden light spilled over the trees, and the villagers made their way back to the village, leaving Fenn in the forest, a quiet sentinel beneath the ancient oak. They knew that though they might not see him again, his presence would forever be woven into the valley, his gaze watching over them as silently as the stars. And in the heart of the forest, Fenn watched them go, his golden eyes catching the first light of morning. He felt the weight of his solitude lift, if only slightly, as though some invisible bond had tied him to those who dared to seek his truth. And he knew then that while his path was still his own, he no longer walked it alone. The truth he had shown the villagers had, in turn, given him a revelation, a glimpse of his own heart reflected in theirs, a reminder that even in the lonely path of truth there was room for connection, for understanding. And so the golden-eyed wolf, keeper of secrets, knower of truths, slipped once more into the shadows of the forest, his path now softened by the light of dawn, and by the memory of a village that would forever carry his gaze within their hearts.